Well, people talk about toxic masculinity and easy fix. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. That's it. This is done. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. A gentleman is never rude by accident.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brand John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show. I am Brad. He is John Combest, Combest. I spell that because you need his entire name to punch into your computer, put into your laptop, touch onto your touch screen on your tablet or iPhone or Android, and you need to go to johncombest.com. You will find his website every single day since, October of 22? Did I get that right?
No, October of 22 would only be 2 years ago, Brad. October of 2001.
Oh, boy, what do I know? I'm doing like the Joe Biden stuff this morning. October of 2001.
Well, it would be 22 years. You're right, though, Brad. You had the number 22 right, for sure.
I just had the year wrong. He puts together this list of all the important stuff that you should know that's going on in the state of Missouri. There are like links to various websites. Sometimes it's videos. Sometimes it's official websites. Sometimes it's not so official websites. Sometimes it's bogus stuff. That's when he links to one of my websites when it's bogus. Anyway, he puts it together. And we start off the show by bringing this guy in. And your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start with?
In third place.
The St. Louis Post-Dispatch is celebrating today in one of their editorials, Brad. They're celebrating the fact that there is now a court date for a St. Louis native named Jim Hoft. And he blogs at the Gateway Pundit. Gateway, of course, referring to our gateway city. And the Post-Dispatch is celebrating because the court has set a trial date for March in a defamation case against blogger Jim Hoft. Now, Jim Hoft started the Gateway Pundit, probably 20 plus years ago. And the center of the controversy, as many listeners will remember, is that Jim Hoft featured a couple of Georgia poll workers and accused them of fraud, accused them of election fraud, and that they were bringing suitcases in, I believe was the allegation, to help throw the election in 2020 in favor of Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump. Now, as we've discussed on the show before, Brad, the Gateway Pundits team, Jim Hoft's team, has claimed bankruptcy and has essentially used that, according to critics, as a shield to protect him and his company assets and his personal assets from these lawsuits. So the Post-Dispatch is celebrating today about the fact that in March the case will go to trial if it's not settled before then. And the Post-Dispatch, of course, uses the opportunity to take shots at Donald Trump, to talk about how Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and others need to be held accountable for their alleged lies and their defamation of folks, particularly the folks in Georgia. So Post-Dispatch is quite happy about this, and it has a real local angle because of Jim Hoft's original ties to the St. Louis area. And Brad, as you and I have discussed, I believe his primary reference now is in Florida.
Isn't it interesting that all these people that sort of come out of St. Louis who become successful leave town? Because,
I can think of three, and you've pointed out the other two, which are?
J.C. Corcoran, he's in Florida. Dave Murray, he's in California, he's in Palm Springs. Now, the interesting part of this is, his partner in crime, and I don't mean that literally, but when they started the whole thing, the Gateway Pundit, and that was all an outgrowth of the Tea Party movement. You know who his partner was, don't you?
Yeah, Dana Lash.
Dana Lash, who's now in Dallas once again.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at that movement, two people who've had a great deal of success are both Dana and Jim Hoft.
And I don't think they even talk anymore. I think somewhere along the line that they got mad at each other. Somebody told me that somebody knows her real well. And, her husband, I don't know if he owned it, but he ran a recording studio here in St. Louis. Did you know that?
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, he was very involved in the music industry.
Right.
I don't know what kind of relationship she has with Jim Hoft, and I don't follow gossip very closely.
Well,
but So let's see. We've talked before about Jim Hoft has been quite successful and has made a lot of money doing this. So we'll see if he's able to protect those hard-earned assets.
Okay. go ahead and intro me like I'm Jim Hoft and I'm going to be a guest on the Brad and John show. Okay, and I'm going to play Jim Hoft. Okay, go ahead, intro me.
Okay, you don't mean Jim, you mean his brother, right?
No, I mean Jim. I mean his brother.
Oh, okay.
I mean Jim.
Hey, now go ahead and tell us a little bit about your website, Jim.
Well, John, it's a very interesting website, and everyone will love it. They'll come from miles around to look at my website.
And if you don't like Jim Hoff's voice, you should go to a deep baritone, which is featured in story number 2.
Okay, ask me to do his brother too. What's his brother's name?
Okay, do it. Make fun of his brother's voice.
Well, John, I sound just like my brother Jim, and I have the perfect voice for radio. That's why Tracy hired me.
Oh my goodness, Brad.
I'm sorry.
Can we get into story number 2?
We can, John.
Up a notch to number 2.
Across the state, Pete Mundo at KCMO Radio had incoming governor Mike Kehoe on yesterday. So they started off with a little bit of Chiefs talk, a little bit of talk about the old butt kicker and the old Chiefs victory over the Bengals on Sunday. And also, Mike Kehoe is addressing the tough question, which is the mainstream media's primary message, which is with Amendment 3 on the ballot, won't Republicans get destroyed in November? Now, Brad, I've mentioned this before. I don't want to be like an old guy who repeats his stories over and over and over again, but I will repeat this for the second time in 10 months on this show. We heard this story a lot in 2019 and 2020 when Nicole Galloway was running for office. And we heard over and over again about how because of the overturning of Roe versus Wade and Missouri's draconian pro-life laws, this was the time women were going to stand up and elect a Democrat to be governor. And Mike Kehoe took out his big farm boy hand and spanked Nicole Galloway by 17 points. But John, it's different. Sure, I'm sure this time it's different. You're right, sweetie. No, it's not. Mike Kehoe will be elected governor. Amendment 3 is not going to hurt him. It could have an effect in some state legislative districts for sure. But Mike Kehoe did a good job talking about the fact that a lot of people who are voting in Missouri are fairly conservative. And Pete Mundo pointed out that, hey, maybe some folks will even vote for Amendment 3 and still vote for Mike Kehoe. And Kehoe pointed out, incoming Governor Kehoe pointed out, sure, but I really wish they would vote against Amendment 3. So Pete did a good job of pointing out the dominant mainstream narrative, which is Republicans in crisis, Republicans in trouble. And we know that Governor Kehoe will end up spanking Crystal by a wide margin.
Okay, hold on a minute. You said he ran against her for governor in 2020?
No, I said Governor Mike Parson.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Nicole Galloway ran against Mike Kehoe, and I'm going, okay, I'm lost. Okay, because if I'm not mistaken, Mike Kehoe did not become elected to lieutenant governor. Wasn't he appointed? Didn't they move everybody around? Because, for a while.
That's right. Yeah, you've pointed out how Governor Parson is appointed at one point almost every statewide elected official, Brad.
Right. None of them were elected. They were all.
And he's calling right now because he knows that you leave your notifications on when we're on the air.
Okay, hold on a minute. And this is not. I'll tell you what, John. This is somebody who normally doesn't call me. This is a family member. Normally knows I'm on the air, and when I get a call, it's not good.
I got you.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit number 1, and I'm going to mute my mic, and I'm going to make a call. Okay? Do you mind?
Yeah, no problem.
The number one.
The number one story comes from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Here's the headline: St. Louis area sees record growth in immigrant population. Officials say efforts are working. This story is brought to us by Nassim Binshabane. Maybe it's Ben Shaban. Maybe it's Ben Shabane. Don't know. But the St. Louis area has seen an explosion in the immigrant population, and city officials and county officials were celebrating on Monday. In fact, St. Louis Mayor Tashara Jones declared it Hispanic. Wait a minute. Is it Hispanic Appreciation Month? Let me look. Anyway, no, I'm sorry. She last year created the Office of New Americans to streamline resources meant to help immigrants. And let me get this right. She's declared September 15th, which is yesterday, to October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month, and has noted the success of Hispanic groups. Now, what is unclear is the exact demographic breakdown, income breakdown of these new immigrants. So we don't know exactly all the countries that they're coming from. We don't know exactly where they're living. We don't know exactly what the rest of their demographics are in terms of age, or at least the story did not include that. But we have seen a few different waves of immigrants come into the St. Louis area. The Bosnians, for example, have done a great job in select neighborhoods of essentially colonizing and repopulating areas that were in decline. They have a vibrant, self-sustaining economy. They bring food and largely a lack of criminal activity in these communities to the St. Louis area. Brad, have you rejoined us or should I keep going?
No, I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the story is that we have a brand new influx of immigrants. And in fact, the header really of the story was that St. Louis leads the country in terms of large metro areas with an explosion of population.
Well, according to the census statistics, it sure doesn't look like it's exploding in the city because they keep losing population, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, a question for you, and this is a serious question because of the fact that I know that from the situation that our vice president had a interview on Friday, and she pointed out that what the immigrants are really good at. Did you know this?
I'm guessing it's barbecuing felines.
No, they have beautiful lawns.
I did see that. Yes, I like that. But boy, that really tickled your fancy, didn't it, Brad?
What? Look, I'm not. I get myself in trouble with people that I know who are like dyed-in-the-wool Kamala fans. But okay, let's do some little play acting here. Okay, you're going to be the interviewer, and it was a local TV station, I think in Philadelphia or something like that. And I'm going to be Kamala Harris. I'm not going to do her voice, and you're going to ask me a question. I'm going to answer it. Okay, so here we go. John, think of a question, and then I'm going to answer. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Question.
Your campaign has the success of a runaway train. Why are you so popular?
Well, John, let me tell you that my mother, she raised my sister and I, and we lived in this middle-class neighborhood, and it was sort of like a village, and it was just a wonderful place to be, and everything was so nice. But you know what? My mom worked hard, and even though she was a very high-paid professor at a large university, we didn't have much money because, women get paid only 20% of what the male professors made, and that's because of global warming, because if global warming were inverted, we would have global climate non-change, and that would be because the Indians have all bought the casinos.
And where are you on fracking? Do you have an answer that also involves your mother for fracking?
John, my mother, who was, I don't know if I've ever said this before, was a college professor. Oh, she was so smart. She was so smart. And she married the perfect man, but then he left us, and we couldn't quite figure out what happened. He went out for a pack of cigarettes, and he never came back. But other than that, he was the perfect man, and I take all my father's advice. My father gives me my economic advice, and one day he looked at me in the eyes and said, Kamala, someday you will realize that fracking is the devil, and you shouldn't do fracking. So how'd I do, John?
That's beautiful. Can the curtain fall on that one, Brad? Because that was a masterful performance.
All she did was she just has these memorized segments that she just spews out. And the crazy part of it is, did you know that she even did a local interview? Because everybody goes, oh, she did do a local interview. And the reason that it hasn't been publicized much, you know why?
Because it was terrible?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what in fact, now, was that last week, Brad?
I think it was Friday.
Oh, yeah, because I think it was Mary Elizabeth Coleman on Mark Reardon's show referenced an interview that was highly edited that went for a while. And I think Mary Elizabeth was talking about that.
There was a time. And it's funny, I get criticism and I get compliments. I get them from two different sides of the equation here. With this radio station, because we have breaks that we have to fill. There's like a 5-minute break, and we have local commercials in there, but right now we don't have enough local commercials. We need more advertisers. Okay, I'd be honest and say that. So I fill it with some interesting stuff. And I've gone back and found a bunch of speeches and little anecdotes and sometimes jokes from Ronald Reagan. And it's so interesting because I have had several people say to me, "Oh my God, I've heard those Reagan bits on your station. God, he was good." You know what I mean? It's
and not appreciate is what you're getting at is that in the moment we don't appreciate how good he was.
Right. And now I think people do because, let's be honest, we have two people running for president who, on one side, we have the canned response from Kamala. On the other side, we sometimes have the crazy, weird responses from Trump that sometimes are like, and somehow or another always comes back to a couple central points that how many people show up to his events and he comes back to the same stuff again and again and again. And it's to the point where it's like, see, the interesting thing is that there's one and I can't play it because it's complicated. I can't get it on the air right now because it's in a different part of the computer system, which I can't necessarily put on the air live. Okay. But he's asked by Sam Donaldson. Remember Sam Donaldson?
Yeah, of course I do. He had those Spock ears.
Right, the incredible reporter. I think he was with ABC for a long time, and he asked him about negotiating with the Russians. And at first, he makes a joke and everybody laughs, and he essentially says, the Russians and the Americans are the two most prominent people on the face of the earth, and they're talking about nuclear talks. They're talking about getting the SALT talks, if you remember that back in the day, the agreement on nuclear weapons and strategic reduction of force and that kind of good stuff. And he goes on off the top of his head and talks about how we are and the Russians are the two most people who could create another world war, and it's very important that we not create that world war. Very important that we work together and we come. I'm thinking to myself, and he's so incredibly eloquent. And here we have Trump, who babbles on about this. We have Kamala, who babbles on about whatever and cackles. And I'm going like, I'll say it right now. We need two new people run for president. Somehow or another, we need an intervention. We need something to happen where Kamala will come on and say, you know what, I don't really want to be president. And Trump will go, you know what, I think I just want to play golf for the rest of my life. Okay, fine. Let's get two new people in there. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and the fantasy role play stuff is always very fun. And then you look at reality, which is that Americans are going to choose. And it looks like a majority of Republicans went out and chose Donald Trump, and definitely a majority of Democrats did not choose Kamala Harris.
Well, and look, it's now I'm going to be accused of being in the Republican think tank.
Harris, who accuses you of things, Brad? We spend too much time worrying about that. Go ahead.
Well, but think about that whole aspect. There is the Democrats are the ones saying democracy. Trump's going to destroy democracy. So here we have a group of important Democrats who essentially show up in Delaware or call him on the phone or Facebook him live or Zoom him or whatever and essentially convince him to not run for president anymore. And like you said, we have someone who is on the ballot for president who has never won, and keep in mind, this is her second time essentially running for president, who's never won one single delegate in a state, never gotten one single legitimate vote for her for president, and people are calling Trump the fake. Did you hear was it yesterday? Did you hear the Hillary Clinton interview?
No, I did not.
Oh my God! It's to the point where it's like, okay, Hillary, are you still butthurt because of Trump made you look stupid at the debates? Even though she won the debates, the experts remember in the 2016 race, everybody.
Oh yeah, of course she did.
She won the debates, but yet the classic one was where he says something about she says something about blah 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 blah, and he says, "Yeah, we're gonna put you in jail."
Some would call her a has-been, Brad, and the fact that I haven't heard her interview. That means I'm unburdened by what a has-been.
No, you have not. Okay. Yeah, I think you're using the line that Kamala Harris has used every speech she gives. And
unburdened by what has been.
Right. Right. And I'm going like, okay, where did that come from? By the way, okay. Do you know who Jimmy Carr is? Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah, he's an old-timey comedian, right?
No, he's not old-timey. I don't think he's like. Are we talking the same guy? This guy's from England. Are you talking?
Yeah. He does a lot of roasts. I thought he did like old-time comedy, like shtick, like. Anyway, I could be wrong.
No,
but he does. Isn't he like he does a lot of roasts, like celebrity roasts?
Well, I don't think I've ever seen him do celebrity roast. His thing is.
Okay, well, let's not belabor it. Go ahead.
Okay,
Jimmy Carr is an actor.
No, he's a comedian guy, but he's very interesting. Okay, do you know who Matt Rife is? Does that name ring a bell?
I do not. No.
Okay, Matt Rife is another. He's a very young, upcoming. Actually, he's doing very well for himself. But they specialize in playing with the audience and essentially taunting the audience. And Jimmy Carr actually goes after people in the audience and just really sort of like slices and dices them. Okay. Jimmy Carr has turned into this very interesting guy where he really is, like, to me, a very thought-provoking guy. And not only does he do his comedy, he also does other things as well, too. I got turned on to something, and I heard this on the Armstrong and Getty show, and I went and I listened to it yesterday, and it's from an interview of some guy who is, I don't know who he is, a young guy in England who is a multimillionaire who does a very popular podcast, and it's on YouTube as well, too. And recently one of his guests was Jimmy Carr. And there's two versions of that. There's the entire unedited interview, which is like an hour and 35 minutes. And then there's like a 9-minute version, okay? Let me play you, and I don't know if you heard this when we started the show. There's a technical issue, and it's not John's fault. It is my fault 100%.
I heard the quote about a gentleman doesn't give an insult unintentionally or something.
Okay, here, let me play that again. Okay, listen to this, okay? And you should be able to hear this now, okay? Here we go.
Well, people talk about toxic masculinity, and easy fix. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. That's it. This is done. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. A gentleman is never rude by accident.
Okay. I heard that. I thought to myself, that is so on target as far as I'm concerned. People have forgotten what it's like to be a gentleman. And interesting, because John's going to accuse me of the fact that I dated a Jewish girl in high school, that here's another Yiddish word, a mensch. You know what a mensch is, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And what he's saying is, he's just saying, be a good person. That's what men should be. You don't have to, and once again, it's like there's a talk show that's on the Patriot, and it's this guy named Tom Grisham. I'll tell you what, let's do this in the next break because we're long on this one. But Tom Grisham talks about this same thing in a different respect. Tom Grisham is a gun guy, and it's pretty interesting because he essentially is saying the same thing that Jimmy Carr is saying, but he's using a different context. And we'll talk about that next break. Also, I have an answer for you, which is, once again, me punching buttons as I'm driving around in my car yesterday. Unfortunately, I spent too much time in my car yesterday. I have an answer to the question of why nobody covered like you said, you couldn't find anything in any of the Kansas City media, why nobody covered the Megyn Kelly interview that was done with Mr. Tucker. And do you know what I think is the reason? Have you done it?
No, but let's do that when we come back. That'll be in B Block.
Okay, we'll do that as well.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?